Chapter 31, wherein we are led to marvel at the readiness with which an honest man of timid and gentle nature can commit a horrible crime. Profoundly distressed by the dark utterances of young Maurice, Monsieur Sariette took a motor omnibus and went to see Pierre Guinardon, his friend, his only friend, the one person in the whole world whom it gave him pleasure to see and hear. When Monsieur Sariette entered the shop in the Rue des Courcelles, Guinardon was alone, dozing in the depths of an antique armchair, his face, surrounded by his curly hair and luxuriant beard, was crimson in hue. Little violet filaments spread a network about the fleshy part of his nose, to which the wines of Burgundy had imparted a purple tint, for there was no longer any disguising the fact. Pierre Guinardon drank. 2 feet away from him, on the fair Octavie's work table, a rose, all but withered, drooped in an empty vase, and in a basket a piece of embroidery was lying unfinished and neglected. The young Octavie's absences from the shop were growing more and more frequent, and Monsieur Blancmesnil never called when she was not there. The reason of this was that they were meeting 3 times a week at 5 o'clock in a house close to the Champs Élysées. Pierre Guinardon knew nothing of that. He did not know the full extent of his misfortune, but he suffered. Monsieur Sariette shook his old friend by the hand, but he did not inquire for the young Octavie, for he refused to recognize the connexion. He would sooner have talked about Zéphirine, who had been so cruelly deserted, and whom he hoped the old man would make his lawful wife. But Monsieur Sariette was prudent. He contented himself with asking Guinardon how he was. Perfectly well, was Guinardon's reply, but he felt ill, for either age and lovemaking had undermined his sturdy constitution, or else young Octavie's faithlessness had dealt her lover a fatal blow. God be praised, he went on. I still retain my powers of mind and body. I am chaste. Be chaste, Sariette. Chastity is strength. That evening, Pierre Guinardon had taken some specially valuable books out of the Kingwood cabinet to show a distinguished bibliophile, Monsieur Victor Meyer, and after the latter's departure, he had dropped off to sleep without putting them back into their places. Books had an attraction for Monsieur Sariette, and seeing these particular volumes on the marble top of the cabinet, he began to examine them with interest. The first one he looked at was La Pucelle in Morocco, with the English continuation. Doubtless, it pained his patriotic and Christian heart to admire its text and illustrations, but a good copy was always virtuous and pure in his sight. Continuing to chat very affectionately with Guinardon, he picked up, one by one, the books which the antiquary had, for one reason or another. Binding, illustrations, distinguished ownership, or scarcity, added to his stock. Suddenly a glorious shout of joy and love broke from his lips. He had discovered the Lucretius of the Prior de Vendome, his Lucretius, and he was clasping it to his bosom. Once again I behold you, he sighed as he pressed it to his lips. At first, Pierre Guinardon could not quite make out what his old friend was talking about. But when the latter declared to him that the volume was from the De Esparvu collection, and that it belonged to him, Sariette, and that he was going to take it away without further ado, the antiquary completely woke up, got on his legs, declared emphatically that the book belonged to him, Guinardon by right of true and lawful purchase, and that he would not part with it unless he got 5,000 francs for it cash down. You don't take in what I am telling you, answered Sariette. The book belongs to the De Esparvu library. I must restore it to its place. Pas de ta, de set, hummed Guinardon. The book belongs to me, I tell you. You are crazy, my good Sariette. And noticing that as a small matter of fact, the librarian had a wandering look in his eye, he took the book from him and tried to change the conversation. Have you seen, Sariette, that the rascals are going to rip up the Palais Mazarin and cover up the very heart and center of the old town, the finest and most memorable place in the whole of Paris, with the deuce knows what works of art of theirs. They are worse than the Vandals, for the Vandals, though they destroyed the buildings of antiquity, did not replace them with hideous and disgusting erections and atrocious bridges like the Pont de Alexander and your poor Rue Grand-Sire. Sariette has fallen a prey to the barbarians. What have they done with the pretty bronze mask of the palace fountain? Monsieur Sariette never listened to a word of all this. Guinardon, you have not understood me. Now listen, this book belongs to the De Esparvu library. It was taken away. How or by whom I know not. Dreadful and mysterious things went on in that library, but anyhow, the book was stolen. I need scarcely appeal to your sentiments of scrupulous probity, my dear friend. You would not like to be regarded as the receiver of stolen goods. Give me the book. I will return it to Monsieur de Esparvu, who will duly requite you of that. You may be sure. Rely on his generosity, and you will be acting like the downright good fellow that you are. The antiquary smiled a bitter smile. Catch me relying on the generosity of that old curmudgeon of a de Esparvu. Why, he'd skin a flea to get its coat. Look at me, Sariette, old boy, and tell me if I look like a dunderhead. You know perfectly well that the de Esparvu refused to give 50 francs in a second-hand shop for a portrait of Alexander de Esparvu, the founder of the family, by Hercent, and that consequently the founder of the family has had to remain on the boulevard Montparnasse, propped against a Jew hawker's stall, just the opposite of the cemetery, where all the dogs of the neighborhood come and make water on him. Catch me trusting to Monsieur de Esparvu's liberality. You've got some bright ideas in your head, you have. Very well, Guinardon, I myself will undertake to pay you any indemnity that a board of arbitrators may fix upon. Do you hear? Now don't go and do the handsome for people who won't give you so much as a thank you. This man de Esparvu has taken your knowledge, your energies, your whole life for a salary that even a valet wouldn't accept. So leave that idea alone in case it is too late. The book is sold. Sold to whom? Asked Sariette in agonized tones. What does it matter? You'll never see it again. We'll hear no more about it. It's off to America. To America? The Lucretius with the arms of Philippe de Vendome and Marginalia in Voltaire's own hand? My Lucretius off to America? Pierre Guinardon began to laugh. My dear Sariette, you remind me of the Chevalier de Grue when he learns that his darling mistress is to be transported to the Mississippi. My dear mistress going to the Mississippi, says he. Not so, answered Sariat, very pale. This book shall not go to America. It shall return as it ought to the De Espavu library. Let me have it, Gwynerdon. That antiquary made a second attempt to put an end to an interview that now looked as if it might take an ugly turn. My good Sariat, you haven't told me what you think of my Greco. You never so much as glanced at it. It is an admirable piece of work all the same. And Gwynerdon, putting the picture in a good light, went on. Now just look at St. Francis here, the poor man, the Lord, the brother of Jesus. See how his homogeneous body rises heavenward like the smoke from an agreeable sacrifice, like the sacrifice of Abel. Give me the book, Gwynerdon, said Sariat without turning his head. Give me the book. The blood suddenly flew to Pierre Gwynerdon's head. That's enough of it, he shouted, as red as a turkey cock, the veins standing on his forehead, and he dropped the Lucretius into his jacket pocket. Straightway, old Sariat flew at the antiquary, assailed him with sudden fury, and frail and weakly as he was, butted him back into young Octavie's armchair. Gwynerdon, in ferocious amazement, belched forth the most horrible abuse on the old maniac and gave him a punch that sent him staggering back 4 paces against the Coronation of the Virgin by Fra Angelico, which fell down with a crash. Sariat returned the charge and tried to drag the book out of the pocket in which it lay hid. This time Pierre Gwynerdon would really have floored him had he not been blinded by the blood that was rushing to his head, and hit sideways at the work table of his absent mistress. Sariat fashioned himself on to his bewildered adversary, held him down in the armchair, and with his little bony hands clutched him by the neck, which, as red as it was already, became in deep crimson. Gwynerdon struggled to get free, but the little fingers, feeling the mass of soft warm flesh about them, embedded themselves in it with delicious ecstasy. Some unknown force made them hold fast to their prey. Gwynerdon's throat began to rattle. Saliva was oozing from one corner of his mouth. His enormous frame quivered now and again beneath the grasp, but the tremors grew more and more intermittent and spasmodic. At last they ceased. The murderous hands did not let go their hold. Sariat had to make a violent effort to loose them. His temples were buzzing, nevertheless. He could hear the rain falling outside, muffled steps going past on the pavement. Did not let go their hold. As on pavement, newspaper men shouting in the distance. He could see umbrellas passing along in the dim light. He drew the book from the dead man's pocket and fled. The fair Octavie did not go back to the shop that night. She went to sleep in a little entresol underneath the bric-a-brac stores which Monsieur de Blancmesnil had recently bought for her in this same Rue de Courcelles. The workman whose task it was to shut up the shop found the antiquary's body still warm. He called Madame Lenaine, the concierge, who laid Gwynerdon on the couch, lit a couple of candles, put a sprig of box in a saucer of holy water, and closed the dead man's eyes. The doctor, who was called in to certify the death, ascribed it to apoplexy. Saffarine, informed of what had happened by Madame Lenaine, hastened to the house and sat up all night with the body. The dead man looked as if he were sleeping. In the flickering light of the candles, El Greco's saint mounted upwards like a wreath of smoke. The gold of the primitives gleamed in the shadows. Near the deathbed, a little woman, by about the wind, was plainly discernible, giving herself a douche. All through the night, Sapharine's lamentations could be heard 50 yards away. He's dead, he's dead, she kept saying. My friend, my divinity, my all, my love. But no, he is not dead. He moves. It is I, Michael, your Sapphirine. Awake, hear me, answer me. I love you. If ever I caused you pain, forgive me. Dead, dead. Oh my God, see how beautiful he is. He was so good, so clever, so kind. My God, my God, my God. If I had been there, he would not now be lying dead. Mikkel, Mikkel. When morning came, she was silent. They thought she had fallen asleep. She was dead too, which, of course, would give reason for the person to, uh, uh, you know, assume that the initial diagnosis would have been correct. Now, in the previous chapter, I don't think I have remarked on the idea that, well, whether or not somebody else is supposed to be doing the right thing or whatever is considered like it's as if it's the right thing, that doesn't mean that you can't control yourselves. So this is sort of an outdated view that, oh, sure, certain things factor into things, but people are responsible for their own choices. So don't say that somebody is modest for other than themselves, or other than, to do some sort of sacred duty. And, one guy is talking about chastity is strength. Well, chastity is not whether or not stuff was done, it's if stuff is controlled and in context. And honestly, if somebody knows that they stole something, isn't and it becomes clear or that they have stolen goods and they're supposed to return it, aren't they in the middle of a crime and isn't any violent conflict in the middle of a crime? I don't know. Look up the laws where you are. It kind of doesn't sound like murder to me, but